fantastic, Rebecca.
I like it. Oh, hey! We didn't see you there.
Oh my gosh! Come join us. We should talk about chastity.
In the very beginning, there was a garden where God placed a man and a woman. He gave them dominion over the whole garden, but one rule. They were not allowed to eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. But the man and woman were tempted into disobeying God. This first act of disobedience is called original sin, and because of original sin, the whole world that existed in total harmony was thrown into disorder. Everyone was implicated in Adam and Eve's sin. Through the first sin, death and sin entered the world and filled it. The result of this is that the human heart became a battlefield between a beautiful, harmonious, original design that God had for us and concupiscence, which is our inclination to sin. We are being pulled in two different directions, one direction towards God and the other towards our selfish desires.
We are pulled toward God because we were created to know, to love, and to serve Him in order to become one with Him. This is our calling and why we were created. In our deepest longing, we long to be one with God. Our hunger for union with God was expressed beautifully by St. Augustine, who wrote, "O Lord, our hearts are restless until they rest in Thee." Even if we don't realize it, we desire communion with God. Because we were created in community, our hearts also desire communion with others. It is not good for us to be alone. We need relationships with other people. These desires for union are written on our hearts, and before the fall, they were rightly ordered. They made sense. After the fall, these desires became disordered by concupiscence. Concupiscence pulls us towards ourselves instead of into genuine friendships with God and others. It disorders these desires. It whispers the same lie told by the serpent in the garden. It tells us that we determine right and wrong, that we are like God.
Remember, concupiscence is our inclination to sin. It can take many forms, and it affects the whole person, including our sexuality. One of these ways is our tendency to lust. Lust is a desire for sexual pleasure that seeks its own gain. Lust is the opposite of love because it turns someone into an object to be used for someone's pleasure, rather than a person made in the image and likeness of God. Lust is a result of concupiscence, our inclination to sin. We are made for union and community with other people, but lust makes us selfish by viewing another person as an object to be gained, rather than a person to be received as a gift. Jesus speaks directly about lust in the Sermon on the Mount. He starts off by going over the sixth commandment, "Thou shalt not commit adultery." The people listening to his sermon are thinking, right, of course, don't sleep with someone you aren't married to. But then, Jesus helps people understand that this commandment goes beyond a physical action. He says to them, "I say to you, everyone who looks at a woman with lust has already committed adultery with her in his heart." We lust when we objectify people by their appearance. Pornography is built on this idea. It turns people into products.
This is challenging, because it seems like in our world, there are so many opportunities for lust. Since we live in a fallen world, a world that's tainted by original sin, we're going to face a lot of temptations to lust. On top of that, we are hardwired to desire union with other people. We're designed to want to give ourselves to others and be received by others. We want to be in relationship with the people around us. And we want union with God too. We want to be loved. And that desire for union and for love is a holy desire. But lust is the opposite of love. Lust is almost like a counterfeit of love, and apparently it's a pretty convincing one. We can pretty easily convince ourselves that we are finding what we are looking for by giving into lust and calling it love. You've heard people say love is a battlefield. Well, if you think about it, there really is constantly a battlefield within us as we try to sort out our hardwired desire to love and be loved from the very tempting counterfeit of lust.
Think of our desire to love and be loved as a hunger. When people get hungry, there are a few things that they can do. One choice is starvation. Some of us, for different reasons, may have been told that our desire to love and be loved is a bad thing, that it will only lead to sex and sin. We feel guilty about this, so we avoid it. This isn't how God created us. As a teenager, you are called to abstain from sex, meaning not engage in it. Sex happens in the context of marriage, but there's a big difference between abstinence and denial. Abstinence acknowledges that sometimes there will be temptations, but you're going to make a conscious decision to avoid them. When we know what we're fighting for, we can fend off those attacks. We can choose to find appropriate expressions of love in our family and friendships instead. Denial represses our desire for love, and rather than trying to order our lives so that we can fight temptation, we completely ignore it. The problem with starving our hunger like that, rather than confronting it, is that the hunger never really goes away, and instead it grows and grows inside of us until we can't wait anymore. Starvation eventually leads to the second way that we deal with hunger.
What's easier when you are hungry? Waiting a whole hour to get home to cook a meal, or hitting up a fast food drive-thru? Obviously, going through the drive-thru is much easier and quicker. But what would make you feel better afterwards? If you cook for yourself, you can eat healthy. But if you're eating a quarter pounder with fries and a large soda, you're probably going to feel like garbage afterwards. If you keep making that decision, eventually your health will get worse. The more often you choose the junk food, the more the rest of your body starts to suffer. Instead of starving themselves, some people completely give in to lust. They indulge their sexual desires through hookups, premarital sex, pornography, and masturbation. These quick fixes are like junk food. They are easy, but not healthy. They wear us down, and they'll make us sick spiritually. The challenge is, these things are readily available, and they're presented as much more appealing than eating something healthy. They don't require any self-control, and we can get them whenever we want. Like the first way of dealing with hunger, this one leaves us feeling empty. Our bodies weren't created for junk food. It won't give us what we are really seeking. We are called to something greater.
The third response to our desire is to eat healthy, for what our body needs at this stage in our life. We are made for communion, both with God and with others. If we deny that, we starve. And if we indulge it, we get sick. If we recognize it, though, and feed that desire in appropriate ways, we grow and become healthy. To be able to do this, we need to know how to appropriately express our sexuality at different stages of our life. Chastity is the integration of our sexuality within our person that allows us to be unified, body and soul. Every person, regardless of their state of life, is called to chastity. Chastity helps us to keep our desires in check. It keeps us from starving and from eating a bunch of junk food. It is the self-mastery of our soul over our body. Chastity allows us to be truly free. So how does chastity allow us to express our longing for love and still be free from sin?
Think of the food you ate as you grew up. It looked different depending on your age. Ultimately, you are meant for a wedding banquet, and that banquet comes in the fulfillment of your vocation. If your vocation is marriage, sex in marriage is your wedding banquet. It is everything sex should be. It's total, free, fruitful, and faithful. It allows the total self-gift of one person to another. Likewise, people who are called to celibacy also have a wedding banquet. They give themselves totally to God, and they find their happiness and fulfillment there. But not all of us are ready for that wedding banquet. Just like a young child wouldn't eat the grown-up food at a fancy restaurant. Everything has its due time in God's great plan.
Chastity requires anyone who isn't married to abstain from sexual activity. Some days this may seem impossible, and it is impossible if we ignore our desire to seek and give love and decide to starve ourselves. Instead of starving ourselves, our longing for community can be expressed in a healthy way, by loving our friends and families and by serving others. When we have holy relationships that are focused more on what the other person needs than on ourselves, it's like eating a lot of vegetables and fruits. We can go strong as individuals and in our relationship with God and others before we enter the feast. If we know we're waiting for something really good, we don't mind passing up on the junk food that we're offered. That's the same with relationships. When we know what we're waiting for is really fulfilling and is going to be awesome for us, we can find joy in what's going on now. This is the difference between chastity and starvation. A person who is starving refuses food indefinitely, but a person who abstains knows that something better is coming and can wait.
Chastity allows us to be free. If we give in to lust and we allow concupiscence to win the battle in our hearts, we become a slave. There are many people who are slaves to their passions, who sleep around and use people. Are they really free? They are seeking a relationship with God and a meaningful relationship with other people, but they are looking in all the wrong places, and they are not finding what they seek.
Chastity allows us to find our purpose. It allows us to protect ourselves and the precious gift we can give to others. It keeps us from becoming an object and from allowing other people to become an object for us. Chastity is our response to concupiscence. It's the way we rightly order our desires in our heart and keep from binging on fast food or starving ourselves to death.
Chastity is also a grace. It is a gift from God. We need to ask God for it and be open to receiving it. Like many of the virtues, the more often we practice it, the more we will receive it. Chastity isn't about overcoming lust. It's about being truly free and truly fulfilled. Thanks for listening, guys. We'll be praying for you.
And be really loud and just act like you're explaining it to us. Ready? Go.
Honk and dance.
Oh, this is awkward. The screen is reflecting in your glasses.
The second thing is junk food.
Take a breath and then start. Oh, speak really loud.
I'm not good at speaking loud.
Like, that's way too quiet.
In the very beginning.
Instead of what?
You guys can't look at me like that. You must be...
Alright, go for it.
Lust is this can happen when we but then Jesus it distorts these pulls us toward
Ow now, brown cow. The arsonist has oddly shaped feet.
Chastity is a hard word to say with a British accent.
Chastity
Chastity
allows us to be free.
This is Montgomery County, folks, please.
Northern.
This is not Hicksville.
I'm recording all of this.
Is challenging.
No.
Just like that. Practice that one more time.
I can't see it, man. You went too fast. I didn't know the page breaks.
Alright.
Are you really chill, yo?
Yeah.
How's my hair? Beautiful.
Obs. Nice now? No, now it's messed up on that side. Come over here.
Ah! Ah!
Alright, stop.
The Human Torch was denied a bank loan.